Thank you so much. Hi, all. If this is your first session of the day or if it's your third, welcome to the Brass Fall 2025 Online Symposium. I'm Nora McKenzie. I am the chair of the Business Reference and Academic Libraries Committee for Brass, and I'm also the co-chair of the Symposium Subcommittee alongside Kelly LaVoice. We also have a fabulous subcommittee, including Christy Cunningham, Kate Cummings, Brian Garrison Wynn, and Doris Jui. All of our sessions today are being recorded and they'll be sent out to everybody who's registered along with the slides. If you haven't already, go ahead and please mute your audio and your video as we get started. So thank you so much for spending time with Brass and our presenters today. And now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Kate Cummings, who is our moderator for our next session.
Hello, I would like to introduce Reilly from Northeastern University, and her talk is From Classroom to Co-op, Library Support for Professional Readiness for First-Year Business Courses. Take it away, Lily.
Thank you so much, Kate and Nora. Hi, everyone. So, as Kate mentioned, my name is Lily Reilly, and I'll be presenting on my collaborations with our co-op team at Northeastern University. So, here's me. I started this position in September of 2024, and my official title is Entrepreneurship Librarian. There are two aspects to that. One is the traditional business school liaison. So I work with our DeMoore McKim School of Business, faculty, staff, students, and then I also provide interdisciplinary entrepreneurship support across the entire university, which includes our global campuses and also alumni as well. But today I'll be talking more in my capacity as a traditional liaison librarian. So here are my learning objectives for today. You should be able to develop a framework for integrating job search and professional identity instruction into programming for business students. You'll acquire a sample lesson for teaching company research that can be geared towards job searching and interview prep. And we'll also brainstorm strategies to build partnerships to support co-op preparation. And if you're not sure what co-op is, I will also talk about that as well. So this is an overview of the presentation. It'll sort of follow the traditional structure of an academic article. So for some context, as I mentioned, I work at Northeastern University. It is a private nonprofit R1 institution, and we are located in Boston, Massachusetts. Our undergraduate acceptance rate is around a 5%, so we are somewhat of a selective institution. And we are a large institution with that. So we have around 30 to 40,000 students enrolled full time at any given time. And then we also have, of that, around 10,000 plus undergraduates who are looking to secure a co-op placement, which is similar to an internship or a job during their time at Northeastern. And again, I'll go more into depth into what our co-op looks like. So, co-op or cooperative education, this is a hallmark of Northeastern University. Essentially, what co-op is a full-time paid work experience that occurs during your time at Northeastern. So you are both a student and doing this co-op, and this co-op counts towards your progress towards your degree. All undergraduate students have the option to do a co-op, and many of them do. It typically lasts a semester. That's the most common format. There are some students who do co-op over the summers. So we do have some students who will start around May, June, and usually go until September or the fall semester. And these are paid work experience, usually with corporate partners. So unlike maybe a retail job or things like that, I know I worked a sales job when I was an undergrad. This might look very similar to a traditional corporate job. They might be working at a VC firm. They might be doing a marketing position. But again, it's for a very shortened period of time. And they're usually working on a specific project within that partnership in that corporate company. So we do have a class within our business school that prepares students for their time on co-op. So this class is called Business 1103, Professional Development for Business Co-op. It's a 1 credit hour course, so it meets once weekly, every week throughout the semester in person. And it does count towards students' degree, and it is a required course for all business school students. So within this course, they are being taught how to do basic job searching. They have to create and submit a professional resume, which will then get approved by the instructors before they can apply to any co-op position. And in general, it helps students think about what they want their professional development to look like. So maybe you came here and you're an accounting major, but do you want to be an accountant? What do you want to be, or what do you want to do with these skills? So this is what the Business 1103 course looks like. And just for some additional context, looking at this box, the first box on the right here, 92% of Northeastern undergraduate students were either working full-time or enrolled in a graduate degree within 9 months. And this is in large part due to their experience having worked in co-ops. And underneath that, you'll see around 94% of undergraduate students completed at least one co-op placement. So again, you're looking at about 10,000-ish co-op jobs at one time in one metro area typically. More interestingly, I think, is that 50% complete two. So half of that 10,000-ish students, and this is not just in the business school, but across the entire university, complete two co-ops. So again, the demand is very, very high to find these co-op jobs, to secure one, and to be able to have the opportunity to work in that co-op placement. So how did I go about building out support for co-op for our students, and more specifically, our business students? So this is a timeline of the work that I've done. I want to also remind everyone that I started this position in fall of 24, so this is a very new collaboration and one that I am hoping to build out during my time at Northeastern. So when I started this position, I immediately recognized that co-op was something very unique to Northeastern, and that because I had just gone through the job search myself, job searching is really hard and very arduous, and I knew that our students would need support for that. So I reached out to the Business 1103 instructors. There are a set group of instructors who are also co-placed as co-op advisors to these students, and they teach this course. So there's a set group of them. And I reached out to them, and first they wanted me to train them on how I would support these students. So I showed them some databases and some ways to go about searching, which I'll talk about later, to support job placement. In the spring, I started to do one-shot class visits. So the instructor said, "This is great. We really appreciate this training. Actually, it would just be better if you came. So why don't you come and do this in our class?" So I started one-shots in spring of 25. In the summer, reflecting on my first year as a liaison librarian, I said, wow, we really need to build out more support for this. So with that, I created a LibGuide page called Launch Your Career, and I'll go into more discussion about what that looks like, but essentially a homepage or a landing page for all of the resources that I teach and discuss to support co-op and job searching. And then also in that summer, I put out a more specific call for class visits. So I had more details about what the support could look like and what potential partnerships would be. And I had a targeted list of all of the instructors so I could put out an official call for offering myself to visit their classes and teach these resources. And then this past fall, I did more class visits, and support grew both in person and online modalities. And I'm looking forward to growing that further, which I'll also discuss. So just to overview, here are the steps to how I built out this support. So I started with reaching out to the Business 1103 instructors, and I was able to train them on the value of our business databases. Many of them don't know that these resources are available not only to the students, but also to the staff as well. And because many of these co-op advisors have backgrounds in higher ed and not necessarily business, they're not really familiar with these tools. So training and teaching them what is available and how it can be used. And then again, beginning to go into the classroom and teach the students myself the value of the databases and the information that we have available. Then I began planning a dedicated lesson plan for these visits. So the visits started to increase, and I was visiting multiple classes in a semester. So having a dedicated lesson and activity that I could pull off of the shelf for every class. I created that Launch Your Career LibGuide page, again, a landing page so that when I leave the class, I can just send this LibGuide page and have all of the resources in one place. And then in the future, continuing that, I reached out for class visits with all of this. So when I would send out my call for class visit email, I would have the lesson plan attached and the Launch Your Career page so that instructors could see the support modalities that I had built out. So I wanted to briefly talk about how this aligns with the brass competencies. So what I teach is both industry and company research. So we might be looking at, let's say, a student who wants to work at Wells Fargo, and maybe there's a co-op position opening there, but maybe they're not really sure or feeling confident about how to walk into that interview or how to even apply with their resume and cover letter. So we might be looking at the company itself. What industry is that company in? What are strengths in that industry? Opportunities? What are emerging trends that you can be aware of and discuss? And same with the company level as well. What are new developments going on in that company? What is the financial health of that company? What are the major competitors and how does that company differentiate itself? And once you have all of that knowledge, how can you take that knowledge and apply your strengths and abilities to that to make yourself an impressive candidate? So, teaching both industry and company research. And this is also my call that we don't really have a professional development or career readiness competency for students to understand who they are and what they want to contribute to the world and the field. So this is kind of my call. If anyone's interested in building that out, I would be greatly interested in that. I also wanted to talk about how this maps to the ACRL framework. So, the way in which I teach this, I think, is very valuable for the students to understand the information landscape as a whole, because many students and even the instructors are confused as to why learning about the company or the industry has value outside of just the academic class setting. So the first frame, information has value, is kind of hitting at this that, yes, you can write an academic report about these companies using this information, but there's also value outside of that as well. And so, how can using these tools put power into your hands to be informed about what's going on with these companies to make your own choices and decisions? Research as inquiry. So the idea that, and this is very normal in a job search, there's going to be lots of questions and new sort of research avenues, and it's okay to follow all of those different strands. So maybe when you're job searching, you want to know what the salary is. So maybe what's the average salary in that area for that position. Maybe you also want to know the strengths and opportunities of that company so that you can align that with your talking points in your interview. So, again, just multiple strains of things you might be researching while you're job searching. And then, sort of going off of that frame as well, searching as strategic exploration. So, while you're following this nonlinear path, there's going to be a range of information sources and types of information. And this is also something that is important to normalize for our students. They're so used to an academic scholarly article when they're first arriving at college. Many of these business students have never seen a case study or an industry report or company financial statements. So introducing them to what this information looks like and what, again, what value that information has. So kind of combining all of these frames. So, what were the results, or how did I go about building out this support? So, Again, and I think this was dropped in the chat. Here is my Launch Your Career Guide page. So this is actually a tab on our main business library guide. And on the page are different sections. So there's sections for our company research databases, our industry research databases. I have a section on certifications that you could attain. So if you wanted to do the PitchBook certifications or the Bloomberg ones, allowing students to know that they have the power to attain these certifications to add to their resume or to speak about in an interview. I also have on there wage, cost of living, salary. That's maybe not so relevant for co-op, but definitely for their career once they graduate from the institution. So really why is this important or what should students know about all of this? So this is kind of my frame and how I teach what I teach. So understanding the company that you're applying to or interviewing with gives you the competitive advantage because you are going in with all of this knowledge and you can frame what you know about the company with your own strengths. Knowing current industry trends enables you to position yourself as an asset. So, maybe an emerging trend is AI, and maybe you can speak about how you created an AI marketing persona in one of your classes, and that enabled you to then go out and do primary interviewing. So maybe you can bring that to this co-op position. And then again, attaining certifications keeps you sharp and knowledgeable. So it shows that you care about your professional development. You want to learn, you want to grow. And so what this all combines into is that I think it's really important to put the power back into the hands of the students. So I know I felt this job searching. I'm sure many of us can relate. It's so confusing and it can feel really aimless. And I think students, I've heard a lot that they're really comparing themselves to their peers. They feel bad if they don't get a position as fast as someone else. And there's just lots of competition and complicated feelings that can go along with trying to secure a co-op position. And so what I'm trying to remind them is that all of this is hard and you'll hear no a lot, but you do have power. You do have authority over finding a good position and you will. But it's about taking advantage of what's available to you. So, how do I actually teach this when I do class visits? So, this lesson is about 45 to 60 minutes, but it can be done in about 30 to 40. So usually when I do a class visit for this Business 1103 class, I'll start with introducing myself, and then I introduce the library. Most of these students are first or second year students, so they might not even know the library besides a place to study. So I show them the library website. I show them our research subject guides. I show them that there's not just business ones, but all different kinds, and how there's a librarian that maps to every subject. And then I show them the Launch Your Career page. And again, I kind of frame that as a landing page for everything that I'm about to teach. Then, as we all mostly do with traditional one-shots or instruction, demos of our resources. So I'm not going to mention any specific databases, and you can see which ones we have available on my LibGuide. And the reason I'm not going to mention any is that we all have different collections, and we all know our collections and our communities and campuses best. So use your discretion if you want to, do something similar. You know what's available in your collection and you know what strengths your collection has. So I'll usually teach one company database, and the types of things I teach, like I mentioned here on this slide, financials, SWOT or analyst reports. So, how are people evaluating this company and how does it fit into the industry? Who are competitors or, what investments are being made into that company? Recent news, so are there developments or things that you can pick up on through news publications? And then if they're a public company, can you read through the earning calls and transcripts and other publicly available information? Then after I show them that the library exists and is not just a building, and that we have these powerful database tools with all this good information, students do a scavenger hunt. So students are assigned groups. So students are grouped up and they're assigned a company of interest. Usually I poll the instructor because the instructor of the course is also the student's co-op advisor, so charged with helping them find a co-op. They know what companies and what positions these students are interested in. So I'll usually poll the instructor beforehand. Then students have to search in this database to answer specific questions about the company and then how they map to job searching, which I'll show in the next few slides. And then we usually wrap up with a share out, and then I sort of reiterate some of the key points, the power's in your hands. I am here to help you. Your co-op team is here to help you. And again, sort of normalizing all of these challenging feelings that can come up with trying to find a good position. So this is a screenshot of part of this scavenger hunt activity. So I have students working in a Microsoft Excel online sheet. The power of this is that I can share this on the screen. So it's in front of all of the students and the instructor, and everyone can see work in real time. So there's kind of that added social pressure of like, oh, this team's typing, but this one's not. Like, let me get my stuff in. And honestly, students fill this out in like 10 minutes. They're very fast and they kind of like to see their team fill in all the information. So these are the types of questions along the top, very basic information about these companies. And you can see that students do answer and they do a very good job of finding this information. And then what I think is more important is how does this information relate to your job search or your co-op search? So, what value does the company bring to the industry? So, sort of helping students understand what the company's differentiation is and how they can speak to that in a cover letter, an interview, what opportunities might exist for co-ops. So our internal platform is called NU Works. That's where the co-op positions typically are. Students can also find positions that are not listed in there. But what you'll see here is that students found positions in NU Works that they would not have previously found because of this very intentional searching. And then the last question, based on what you've learned from this entire activity, what skills do you need to develop to be an attractive candidate? So this is important, thinking about the company that you have just researched, identifying key skills. And then I think what's important for students to think about is if you do have those skills, great, market them, speak to them, create your star interview answer to speak to that skill. If you don't have that skill, that's okay. How can you develop it? And what resources are available? Do you want to take a LinkedIn learning course, right? Do you want to start a project with some friends to develop some data literacy? How can you, again, put the power back in your hands to make yourself an attractive candidate? So, why does this matter? Again, helping students see
Five
what
minutes.
co-op opportunities might exist, what skills they need to be an attractive candidate, and have them think about what they can do to plan their co-op job search. So it's sort of helping students see the circle of control. Yes, there's all these things that are out of your control, and you'll hear no a lot, and it's hard to find positions, and there's a lot of competition, all that good stuff. But also, what can you do, and what are your strengths? And how can you position yourself as an asset? So currently, this has only been done for a year. So I've taught 9 sections of this Business 1103 class, and each class has about 30 to 40 students. So roughly about 250 plus students have learned this content and gone through this activity. And these are just some screenshots of instructor feedback. Um, Honestly, I just kind of knew there was a need for co-op support and thought, hey, why don't I throw something together and see if it sticks? And I'm very thankful that it did. Having a lesson that really shows students the power of the information that is out there and what they can do with that information in a way that's interactive and, it doesn't baby them, teaches them that, they have to have autonomy in their job search, but gives them the support and the scaffolds to do that. So I've been very grateful to hear lots of good feedback. I didn't know that these instructors were doing a survey on me, but apparently they were, and the results were positive, which was good to hear. So good to hear positive feedback all around. So my next steps, discussions, limitations. So for spring 2026, next semester, my plan is to implement an entry and exit survey to assess the instruction amongst the students. So the Business 1103 instructors have run their own survey, but I want to hear from the students too. What did you know before this session? How confident were you feeling? Were you having trouble finding positions? And then, evaluating the same thing in the exit survey. So far, I've heard great feedback about this lesson, but I'd love to strengthen it and make it better for the students. Next, as always, reaching out to plan these class visits, having that lesson plan I can pull off the shelf. It just makes it so much easier and better to scale, especially when I'm visiting a lot of different class sections. And then lastly, for the spring, um, DeMore McKim, our School of Business, maintains a list every year of the top companies and organizations that hired their graduates. And then the bold on the list, companies that have hired, I believe it's 4 or more graduates. So my plan is to mix in that company list of companies that the students are researching in their groups, to mix some of these top companies with some companies of interest that the students have recommended. And then sort of a longer outlook, co-op is expanding amongst Northeastern, excuse me. It was traditionally offered or has been traditionally offered amongst undergraduate students. Now it's being expanded to graduate students as well. And we also have various campuses across the United States, 2 in Canada and 1 in London. So, considering support modalities outside of just the School of Business, I think business librarians are uniquely positioned to support job searching because of the types of resources we have and the familiarity of the information in those resources. So, considering broader support and expanding that to the different campuses. And with that, I'm sure you're thinking, how is that going to be possible? So creating online learning modules for time and bandwidth support. So I'm only one person and can only be in one place at one time. So how can we continue what has been an effective support modality for helping students find co-op positions, while recognizing the bandwidth and time of our staff? So, some suggestions if you were to apply something like this to your own campus community. Consider the needs of your campus. So, maybe you don't have co-op, most schools don't. Can you do something like this for internship support? Does this maybe look more geared towards graduate student support and helping them find a position upon graduation? Or maybe there's a senior capstone that you could integrate into and give a talk about prepping for finding jobs post-graduation, preparing yourself to speak to all the skills that you have just developed, in your time at the institution. Identify key partners. So for me, there is this set co-op course. There are these set instructors. They teach it every semester. So to me, that partnership was very evident. To you, it might look like a campus career center. It might look like a cultural center. Maybe there's a student group or club. So again, identifying who these people on campus are that you could partner with to support job searching, professional development, and topics among that line. And lastly, creating a support modality that works for you. So obviously we want to support our students and our campus, but you also have to do something that is scalable and attainable for you. And if you are not able to or can't teach 20 classes in a semester because that's a lot, again, what can you do? Maybe it's a couple workshops offered amongst the course of the academic year. Maybe it's a 1 day full symposium on career prep, and maybe you host one session. So again, thinking of what support works for you. I'm able to visit classes. I like to do that, but not everyone can, and I recognize that that can be a limitation. So, speaking of limitations, as I mentioned, I'm just one person, so thinking about how I can scale support. A quick note that if you're interested in using Excel as a note catcher, the term I use for the students. It's a little fussy, so having to share access with that online spreadsheet, sometimes I'm able to share the campus-wide access link. Sometimes I can't, and I have to individually import all the student emails, which is, not ideal. So, thinking about, do you want it to be a worksheet? Do you want it to be an online thing? Maybe it's a Padlet, whatever works best for you. And as I mentioned, not all databases are equal and we all have different collections. So thinking about what are your best resources to support this need. And there's also tons of freely available stuff out there, which I do teach and include in my guides. So thinking of combining what's freely available and what your campus and library offers. So now I'd like to sort of throw this out to you in the chat if you want to drop what strategies you could use to support either co-op prep or career prep for your students and your campus community. And again, you can just drop this in the chat, any sort of strategies to build either partnerships or just to support career development amongst your campus. Okay, thank you. So I'm seeing creating a LibGuide dedicated to career prep. So I'm sure a lot of us have one, or maybe there's one floating around in our library ether. So maybe digging that back up, checking if it's still relevant, maybe catering it to specific popular career choices. Um, Giving a workshop about researching companies and industries, that's great. I think really students don't know that this information is available to them. One pagers with career research resources at professional development events. That's great. Yeah. So if there's like networking events or any development event or job fairs, maybe you want to set up a table and you can give out that one pager. I also have been able to get vendor merch, so maybe getting some vendor merch and doing some tabling. Train the trainer, perfect, right? So training the instructors and then they're all set and they can go teach it. I like to go teach, frankly, but they could do it too. I have taught them. Creating a workshop for different levels, right? So undergrad is going to look so different than grad, PhD, etc. Research after wake, I like that title. That's great. So having 4 credit library instruction course, that's a really great idea. If you're able to do that at your institution. Let's see. Presentations to career or life planning staff about what's available. Again, sort of that train the trainer. And I've seen this before too, joint collaborations on LibGuides, which I always think is great. If your stuff is on the career guides and their stuff's on your guides, we call it the like campus shuffle, I think, where it's like I got to go to the career center, then I got to go here, students have a hard time navigating that bureaucracy. So trying to simplify that. Thank you all. This is great. Um, so thank you all for this. I'm happy to take any questions. I just wanted to shout out some of these references. I wanted to shout out Kelly LaVoice, who's done a very similar framework. She actually published this around the same time that I had developed my lesson plan, and then I read it and was like, that's a great idea. So if anyone else is interested in building out, career prep support, I definitely recommend reading her academic brass article. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you so much.
All right, we had one question so far about how many career centers are on your campus. And it says, our business school doesn't want to use me as much as main campus center. How did you break through this? Is it with or without their blessing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there is a general career center for the institution for Northeastern University, and then there are other career centers within the college level. So I don't know if there's an undergraduate careers center at our business school, but there is a graduate one. Um, was it without their blessing? I guess so. I mean, I will say when I started, I met with them and said, "Hey, I haven't, I started this position and I haven't built out any support. I'd really like to, and here's what's available." So, starting those talks with them, and I think, people don't always love to be approached with more work. So instead of saying, "Hey, let's collaborate," saying, "Hey, here's the really great resources we have. Here's what I can offer for your students, or I can train you in this," and making it as simple for them to use and teach these tools.
Does anybody else have any questions? You can drop them in chat. We have a quiet bunch today. Well, I'll just jump in and say that this was a really great session. This is some great ideas. It's given me some ideas to walk away from. It seems like, oh, we've got one question. Yay. Have you heard from any students who've used these resources to find a successful placement?
I have not directly heard from any students. However, I do have some students connected on LinkedIn. That's just kind of the like normal at Northeastern. And I have seen a couple students who have attained some very good co-op positions. And I think it's a team effort, right? Like the student has the skills and the knowledge, the co-op advisor helps them synthesize that into a resume and a cover letter. And then there's all, it takes a village, right? So I wouldn't, I don't think it's ever me that's, like the sole reason, but helping them connect to these things, I think does really help. I think one thing I'll mention too is last year presenting on the Innovation Challenge, I did have a student say that they spoke about their experience in the Innovation Challenge, and that did land them a job post graduate school. So that was wonderful too.
All right. We have one more question. Do you find that supporting your career search effort has helped build rapport with other colleagues in the business school? Um, yeah, find it helps with colleagues see that the library is a new light when it comes to realizing we share the same goals.
Definitely. I think there's been a lot more buy-in to library support for the business school and sort of building that relationship together. Especially when I approach it, as Kelly mentioned in the question, of we all have the same goal. And the same is true for my traditional liaison work. I've had a good uptick in that in terms of just instructional class visits. And that's because, it's like professors don't want their students using AI or using gobbledygook sources. So when we all have that same goal, how can I support your students? How can I support your instruction? What would be useful for you? And framing it in that way tends to be very effective.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions before we wrap up?
I see one question about what platform was used for
Oh,
the
yeah.
LibGuide. Just SpringShare LibGuides. I'm sure Northeastern has their own like template to make it look pretty, but that is what I used. And I also will say shout out to anyone on here who has a career LibGuide. I did scroll through our partner institutions and sort of any that were available to sort of see what was out there. So that's a great option if you're building a LibGuide to see what else has been made.
Any other questions? Okay, here's a question, maybe premature, but how are you thinking about adapting the scavenger hunt activity for asynchronous instruction?
Yeah, great question. So I haven't thought about that too much yet. I have started thinking like, oh, I really need to scale this for asynchronous instruction and what would that look like? I think maybe doing an example. So saying in the asynchronous instruction, we use H5P. That's the module building that we use, platform we use. And so maybe doing an example of let's research Walmart. If I wanted to find this information about Walmart, here's where I'd go. And sort of walking students through those steps, like almost like a old point and click video game. And then having students maybe now I want you to research Target, and now can you answer these questions about Target? Maybe it's multiple choice, maybe it's not, I'm not sure, but something like that that still gets them to interact with the content, ideally. I think one concern I have with scaling to asynchronous is that I think we all do this. It becomes, I'm just going to click through. And I think there's a drop in attention. So I like to go visit the classes because I think there's higher buy-in, but I think there is a concern about scalability and what that would look like in an asynchronous setting.
Any more questions? Oh, yeah, there we go. Um, if not, I think Nora's going to come back on and wrap this session up. Thank you so much, Lily.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
everyone.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Lily. And if yeah, Kelly and Doris want to go ahead and stop the recording.